Hi, good morning. I'm Boynton. I'm the travel editor of Newsweek, and we're coming to you from the show floor of We're Africa, or the show stadium of We're Africa. And I have with me four of the most distinguished conservation and travel people at the show. And let me introduce Dereck and Beverly Joubert, who are the founding partners of Great Plains. On the far left is Joss Kent, who's the CEO of andBeyond and the founder of African Bush Camps, Beks and Ndlovu. So we'll start with Joss, I think. So the first question is, how can travel brands develop a conservation agenda that works for them, Joss?
Conservation agenda that works for them. I think probably to keep it simple is that they need to focus on what they want to do to start with. Because there's so many causes and so many things you could get involved in that if you haven't got a focus as to what is meaningful to you or to your clients or to your guests, you're never going to have the passion of your staff or the guests to actually engage with that. And then once you've got the focus area that you want to get into, is what are the actual specific engagement that you're going to support. So whether it's flora and fauna or big game, focus in on the one project or two projects that you feel you could have some sort of influence on, because otherwise, again, there's so many things out there that you could focus on that as a company you lose sight of the objective of what you're trying to support. And then probably the most important is that whatever you do support, whether it's direct engagement that you as a company want to do, or you're trying to do it through someone else, do your homework and understand the measurable impact of what you're doing, because invariably lots of people talk a huge amount about what the impact is, but can they actually show you the results, proper results, data, scientific feedback to show that what you've actually supported did have the impact that you thought it was going to do when you got involved in that project. So focus, measurable impact.
Great. Okay, Dereck and Beverly, do you think that travel brands have a responsibility to research best practice and adhere to it? For example, you've got walking with lions, petting zoos and that kind of thing, when we actually know that it doesn't have any conservation value.
Well, definitely, Graham. I think that we are in that business of responsible tourism, and we do need to, as Josh says, do our research, do our homework and find out about these things, but then not just stop there. We need to voice our opinion on these things, and most certainly we don't support, either from within the tourism business or as part of the Big Cats initiative, we don't support petting lions and walking with lions. Nor do we support the canned lion industry, and that's all part of tourism in a way, and we should lobby together and make a stance and speak out about this.
And I do believe, Graham, that now is the time for each and every one of us to become conservationists. And so we have to live it on a daily basis. We have to take action. We have to be part of the change. So don't wait for somebody else to do it and feel like it's in control. It's not in control. Look at global warming. Look at whatever's happening. We all have to take a stance now. And what we do through Great Plains Conservation is we try and be the change that someone would like to emulate later, in life. And I often say is, let's be conscientious about where we choose to go. Let's be conscientious about what we're doing on this planet on a daily basis. And let's do to the animals what we would want to happen to us. And I think if we look at it in a selfish way, in many ways, if you're not interested in protecting the polar bears or the lions and the leopards, think about, are you interested in protecting the future for your children? Be selfish and start protecting the future, and everything else will gain.
Well, on that issue, the consumer has to be better informed, really. I mean, you guys are doing what you're saying. You're lobbying against those bad practices like walking with lions. But it's actually, in a way, it's up to the consumer to be informed, isn't it?
Well, it's both. I think we've got a mutual responsibility. I think that the two big problems in conservation, if you take out a big brush, are ignorance and greed. And for instance, the recent ivory burn in Nairobi, this massive burn of ivory, whether you believe in it or not, certainly erodes our ability globally to be ignorant about it. So if it achieved nothing else, it's eroded that one of those two major problems that we have. Though the walking with lions, the petting lions, the canned lion industry, that's greed. But now we know about it.
Yeah. And one other thing, put yourself in the shoes of those 10,000 elephants. They were murdered. We were pretty much at a cremation for elephants. Think of it as piles of human bones. And I think if we put ourselves in those situations, we will be more caring. We will be more loving to the planet.
Yep. Right, Beks. Conservation is as much about people as it is about wildlife. So how can brands change long-established mindsets in local populations to achieve an outcome that's beneficial to all?
Thanks, Graham. As you say, those are long-standing mindsets, and it's not going to be an overnight process, but you have to start somewhere. And I do believe that part of the success of us achieving the end goal is by forming cohesive messages and delivering the same messages in industry with local communities. So it's really about understanding communities and gaining their trust so that we can be effective. And a lot of that is really understanding what the needs and requirements of these communities are. In some cases, it could take you years to understand what those are.
How does that apply to you, for example, in Zimbabwe, where you are, and the communities around Wangi?
So we've spent the last 8 years basically working with local communities and engaging with them and doing needs assessment in order to try and find out what is it that actually drives them, what is it that inspires them, and try and get their buy-in for wildlife, but through facilitating education programs, development programs that are not in conflict necessarily with their own cultures and views. But education is I suppose, key, because that's investing in future leadership of the country and investing in future leadership of wildlife. Right. So that is quite a big campaign and quite a big drive for us.
Right. Great. Okay, so a question for you all. Now, each of you operates in remote parts of Africa, where strong cultural traditions are still practiced widely. How much is too much when it comes to community engagement? How can we operate sensitively and not run the risk of destroying local cultures? At the Conservation Lab at Spear this weekend, I thought one observer made a good point that they don't want to turn Africa into a living museum. I thought that was a great point. Joss?
I think there's a very fine line between impactful community experiences and commercial exploitation, for one. So it depends what you're trying to get the guest to experience or what you want the outcome to be. Very mirroring exactly what Beck said. As far as we're concerned, the things that we try and expose the guests to are when we've established to work with the community and not for the community. And the essential difference when it comes to the community experience and whether you're going too far is the tourism world, certainly in Africa, is full of vanity projects that might tick all the boxes for the operator and even for the guest. Behind the scenes, we know, because those are projects that have been done for the community, not with the community, that they're not sustainable. And if the operator pulls back, the community is left on their own, and they can't support it. So if you go down that route, you are taking it too far. So with the communities and not for the communities.
Thanks.
So Graham, essentially I think our biggest issue traditionally is that people see that wildlife is living over here and people are living over there. And the reality is that you've got people that have lived amongst wildlife for generations. So I think for us the important message is trying to find out and understand how people can coexist with wildlife. So we're not saying people must get rid of their cattle, but we try to encourage them to live alongside and provide mechanisms or other programs that can allow them to be able to practice traditionally what they do. So for example, the lion guardian sort of concept, where we try to get people to understand holistically as part of a land management scheme, get your cattle all together and pool as one at night and then let them free graze during the day. But you're achieving so much by managing your land and at the same time protecting your cattle from lions.
Okay, any further thoughts?
I agree with both of you. And at the same time, I do believe that we've got to realize that our future conservationists are the people that are living on the buffer zones of these wilderness areas. And so there are many ways that we can help them be part of it. Obviously, it's their heritage, so would they be part of it in that way? But many of them are living with poverty, and so we need to include them to become stakeholders in one form or the other. Obviously, education starts with that process, and then you can, bring them into the company, and they can be part of the company. But they can also be shareholders. In the Maasai land, for instance, we have a great project where we lease land from individual Maasai, 4,000 Maasai, just so that we can keep the northern wildebeest migration open. And that is a wonderful way to include, the communities.
Graham, I think that all of this is correct. I think, however, we need to start with an apology. We need to start apologizing to communities that live around these conservation areas. Once we get that done, they can sit at the table with us as real partners.
Brilliant. Right. Now, and so you have it. 4 experts, conservation in the community. Now you know. There'll be more of these interviews and from across the floor in the coming days. Send us your comments on social media using the hashtag #NotOneStory. Thanks very much.